Learning about world religions. Buddhism. What are the main beliefs and teachings of Buddhism? Introduction. Hinduism, which developed in ancient India, is one of the oldest major religions in the world. But ancient India is also the birthplace of another major religion, Buddhism. Buddhism is based on the teachings of the Buddha, which means awakened one. The Buddha was a man who lived in India from about 563 to 483 BCE. Before he became known as the Buddha, he was a young prince named Siddhartha Gautama. Prince Siddhartha grew up surrounded by wealth in the palaces of his father. At the age of 29, Siddhartha left his royal life to go in search of spiritual peace. During his journeys, he learned great truths that changed his life. By sharing these truths with others, he began the religion of Buddhism. Buddhism was a way of life based on simple teachings. Buddhism also embraced all people regardless of their social class. It taught people how to reach enlightenment, which describes happiness that comes from the knowledge of deep truth. Buddhists believe that once they reached the level of enlightenment, they would escape from the cycle of rebirth. In this lesson, you will learn about Buddhism through stories that are told about the Buddha's life. You will find out what Prince Siddhartha discovered during his life and how his teachings became the basis of Buddhism. Prince Siddhartha's birth. Prince Siddhartha was born about 563 BCE in the present-day country of Nepal, near the Himalayas. His father, Suddhodana, was a powerful king. His mother was Queen Maya. According to Buddhist tradition, before her son was born, the queen had a dream in which she was carried high over the Himalayas to a silver mountain and set on a silver couch. A white elephant with 6 tusks walked around her and then struck her in the right side. The king and queen asked the Brahmins, or Hindu priests, to interpret her dream. "You are carrying a child who will be a great man," they told the queen. The Brahmins declared that the prince's future held 2 possible paths. As a prince, he could rule the universe, but if he left his royal life to see the suffering in the world, he would become the Buddha, one who is enlightened. The queen gave birth to Prince Siddhartha in a garden. Stories say that after the prince's birth, a soft, warm rain of heavenly flowers fell on the baby and his mother. According to Buddhist tradition, the infant prince already looked a few years old and could walk and talk. Siddhartha began his remarkable life by taking a few steps and declaring, "I am the leader of the world and the guide to the world." The prince's royal life. Prince Siddhartha's father wanted his son to be a great and powerful ruler. The king was worried about the Brahmin's predictions. If the prince saw the world suffering, he might ignore his royal duties to seek a spiritual path. The king decided that raising the prince in a world of perfect wealth and beauty would protect his son from all the horrors of the world. He provided Siddhartha with only the finest gardens, houses, education, and food. Servants took care of the prince's every need, from washing his clothes to playing music for his amusement. The prince enjoyed his life filled with lavish pleasures, yet always felt curious about the world outside the palace walls. Some days he would sit under a rose apple tree and wonder about the world beyond his reach. At the age of 16, Prince Siddhartha married a beautiful young noblewoman with a wedding feast that lasted 7 days and 7 nights. For 13 years, the couple lived together in perfect harmony, enjoying the prince's many palaces. Siddhartha and his wife even had a son. The prince discovers 3 forms of suffering. When Siddhartha was 29, the king gave him more freedom to travel outside the royal palaces. According to Buddhist tradition, during his journeys, the prince encountered 3 forms of suffering. On his first trip, the prince and his chariot driver saw a thin man walking with the aid of a stick. "Why does that man look so terrible?" the prince asked. His driver replied that the man was old and that everyone's body weakens with age. On the second trip, the prince and his driver saw a man lying on the ground crying out in pain. "What is the matter with that poor man?" the prince asked. The driver explained that the man was sick. On the third trip, the prince spotted a group of people walking slowly down the road and carrying a corpse. "Death came for that man," Siddhartha's driver said quietly. "One day it will come for you too." The discovery of aging, sickness, and death deeply troubled the prince. Unable to sit at home with his thoughts, he set out a fourth time, where he met a man who glowed with inner peace and calm. The man was an ascetic, a person who gives up worldly pleasures such as possessions, fine clothes, money, and even shelter. How can you sit there so peacefully when there is so much suffering in the world around you? The prince questioned the man. The ascetic replied, to be free of suffering, one must give up the desires, pleasures, and comforts of the world. I find peace by helping others find peace. The prince becomes an ascetic. Prince Siddhartha's experiences with suffering transformed him. Suddenly, his royal life seemed empty. He wanted to find the happiness and peace that the ascetic had found. Siddhartha decided to give up his old lifestyle and search for enlightenment. Becoming enlightened would mean finding deep truth and freedom from suffering. One night, the prince asked his driver to take him to the forest. At the edge of the dark woods, Siddhartha removed his royal robes, sandals, and jewels. He cut off his hair with a knife, put on a simple robe, and carried only a small bowl of alms, or gifts of food. Wishing his driver farewell, Siddhartha began his life as an ascetic. Siddhartha met other ascetics who shared his spiritual goals. Like him, they aimed to understand the nature of the world and believed that they could reach enlightenment through meditation. While meditating, the ascetics sat quietly and focused their minds on spiritual questions. Siddhartha quickly became an expert at meditation. The ascetics also denied themselves many basic necessities. For example, they stayed up all night without sleeping. They also sat in the hot sun without shelter and held their breath for several minutes. They also fasted or stopped eating for many days at a time. Overall, they hoped to find spiritual truth through self denial. Siddhartha continued to follow the way of the ascetics for some time, but he became terribly thin from lack of food. According to Buddhist tradition, he became so thin that he could touch his stomach and feel his backbone. He eventually became unhappy with this extreme way of living, and he had not yet found the key to enlightenment. The prince becomes the Buddha. Through his experience, Siddhartha learned that denying bodily pleasures did not bring enlightenment, so he aimed to find a balance between the extremes of pleasure and pain. He would be neither a prince nor an ascetic. Instead, he would seek a middle way as a path to enlightenment. The prince's new way of thinking caused the other ascetics to abandon him, but he was content to be alone. Although he had not yet found enlightenment, he believed that he was now on the right path. On his 35th birthday, Siddhartha bathed in the river and rested quietly in a grove of trees beneath a full moon. When he awoke, he had a strong feeling that he would soon become enlightened. Then a grass cutter granted him 8 handfuls of soft grass as a present. Siddhartha walked until he reached a tree that would become known as the Bodhi, or enlightenment tree. He placed the grass at the foot of the tree and sat down, vowing to meditate under the tree until he attained enlightenment. According to Buddhist tradition, while Siddhartha was meditating, a wicked god named Mara tried to frighten him. Then Mara sent his 3 daughters, discontent, unhappiness, passion, and desire, to try to tempt Siddhartha, but he resisted them all. He continued to meditate through the rest of the night about the nature of reality and the way to reach nirvana, or true happiness and peace. At night, his mind filled with the truths he had been seeking. He saw his past lives, the great cycle of rebirth, and the importance of karma. He saw how to gain freedom from the continuous cycle and therefore end all suffering. By morning, the young prince had become the Buddha, the awakened one. He had reached enlightenment. The truths that the Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree are the basic principles of Buddhism. They are often called the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha would spend the rest of his life sharing these truths with the people of India. Here is a list of the Four Noble Truths. 1. Suffering is present in all things, and nothing lasts forever. 2. Suffering is caused by cravings, desires, and wants. 3. The way to end suffering is to give up all cravings. 4. The way to give up all cravings is to live life according to the Eightfold Path. The Buddha's teachings. Behind Buddhism's Four Noble Truths is the idea that all things change. The Buddha saw that even when one finds pleasure, it does not last forever, and one suffers when it is lost. To end suffering, he taught people should travel the Eightfold Path. This path follows the middle way. The Buddha could have selfishly escaped into enlightenment. Instead, he chose to teach others the path that he had found. In time, his followers spread his teachings throughout India and other parts of Asia. Look closely at the graphic for the Eightfold Path. The Buddha said that one could end suffering and find enlightenment by following these 8 teachings. 1. Right understanding. Develop a deep understanding of the Four Noble Truths. 2. Right purpose. Live a life of selflessness, not selfishness, love, and nonviolence. 3. Right speech. Be careful and truthful in what you say. Do not lie or gossip. 4. Right action. Do not kill, steal, or lie. Be honest. 5. Right way to earn a living. Do not work at a job that causes harm to people or living creatures. 6. Right effort. Promote good actions and prevent evil actions. 7. Right mindfulness. Be aware of but not attached to your emotions, thoughts, and feelings. 8. Right concentration. Focus your mind with such practices as meditation. Lesson summary. In this lesson, you learned about the beliefs and teachings of Buddhism, a religion that developed in ancient India. Siddhartha Gautama. Buddhism is based on Siddhartha's teachings. Born a prince, he became an ascetic to find enlightenment. Later, he found a middle way to reach nirvana. He became the Buddha and taught others how to seek enlightenment. Buddha's teachings. Buddha shared his discovery of the Four Noble Truths about the state of suffering and the ways to end it. He believed that people could reach enlightenment by living according to the teachings of the Eightfold Path.